what's up, y'all? Welcome into GC Live. I am Wes Mitchell going at it solo today. Chris Clark playing hooky on work, so y'all just got me, but glad to be back. Obviously, we did not have the full live show on Friday. We did a pre-recorded edition, and it was just a weird week with the bye week. So really happy to be back on talking about an actual game and in a position to talk about a matchup with South Carolina and Texas A&M. It feels like that bye week really fell at a perfect spot, I think, for everybody, myself included, a chance to sort of, I don't know, maybe cleanse the palate a little bit. 5 games in, obviously lots of highs, lots of lows, the roller coaster of a season already in just those first 5 games. Obviously, as South Carolina sitting at 2-3, going into the final half of the year, really with, I would say, everything kind of still on the table. Nobody really expectations-wise expected this team, to go win the SEC. So obviously that's out. But as far as expectations go, still an opportunity for this season to be a successful one. The other side of that is obviously, an opportunity for, the season to be a disappointing one. And it will all depend on how South Carolina plays in these final 5 games and whether or not they can clean up their issues that really plagued them throughout the first 5 games of the season. Now, we'll talk about those a little bit. We talked about them a lot last week. And then, of course, we'll turn the table to Texas A&M versus South Carolina this Saturday night, Williams-Brice Stadium. We got the news officially on Sunday night that game is now we knew it was going to be 7 or 7:30, but that game gets the 7 o'clock kickoff on ESPN. Let me make sure I'm right on that, y'all. I'm second guessing myself. Yeah, it was originally 7:30. Then they flexed it 7 o'clock ESPN. The news right before I came on coming out that South Carolina and Ole Miss, which is of course not this weekend but the next weekend at Oxford, November 14th. That game will be at 7:30 on the SEC network. So, all right, y'all. Glad to see everybody back in. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope y'all enjoyed watching some non-South Carolina games over the weekend. I know it's a little bit different not watching your team, but I see a lot of our familiar faces already in the chat. Gamecock Russ, what's up, man? Daniel, give a few shout outs here. Peter Hongwell, what's up, man? I feel like I hadn't seen you on the live show recently. Shane Oliver, Alex, Kyle Foster, Travis Edwards. So maybe a new person or two, but a lot of our loyal watchers. Yeah, well, I don't know. What did y'all do this weekend? What are y'all thinking moving forward? I've got Colin Taylor, of course, who does a great job as our beat writer. What's up, Fred? Colin, who does a great job as our beat writer. He's going to join me probably about 2:15 or so. I'm going to talk a little bit actually about the Garnet and Black World Series with the baseball team and what he saw from those guys. And then he's going to give us his thoughts a little bit on Texas A&M as well. Chris is out for today and I believe tomorrow. And then starting on Wednesday, we will have the full crew back. And from what I understand, we're going to have a new sponsor, an additional sponsor, I should say. Of course, this show brought to you by Affordable Medical USA. Check them out at affordablemedicalusa.com. They are home of the Game Day Chair, and they help make the show possible and help make the show a daily show as opposed to the once or twice a week show that we were doing before. So, of course, we really, really appreciate those guys. So, all right, at some point I'm going to go into a few games from this past weekend, but I think you have to maybe start because I see Jay here asking, and last night when the Luke Doty rumors hit, I was like, well, that'll be the topic of discussion. That'll be the first topic of discussion for the show tomorrow. I would say about, 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 last night, the rumors started spreading about, the potential of a quarterback change. I will say, from everything I've gathered, and we're doing, obviously this is Monday, so you always have to have the caveat that things can change quickly. But based on everything I've gathered, and South Carolina's been practicing. They've returned from the bye week. They practiced Sunday, practiced today. They have Tuesday off because that is a mandatory day off for the election day by the NCAA. So I'll tell y'all what I've heard here. I will be surprised if Colin Hill is not the starting quarterback on Saturday. And I would say I'd be really surprised if he's not the starting quarterback on Saturday, assuming that, he's healthy he remains healthy throughout the week, all that stuff. And assuming it's not just something that you can't predict. As far as all things else being equal, Colin Hill, I firmly believe will start for South Carolina on Saturday. Now, is there a possibility that as this season goes along, we see a little bit more Luke Doty, mixed in at quarterback? I think that's very realistic. Both of the backups got extra reps last week during the bye week, including Luke Doty, including Ryan Helinski. Both those guys got extra reps. From what I understand, Doty had a good week of practice. He showed you flashes, the one play against LSU, sort of what he can do with the ball in his hands. So could we see more of that? Could we see an expanded package? Could we see Luke sort of, get the chance to get his feet wet and then sort of go from there? I think that's not just a possibility, but I think that's actually likely from some things I've heard. And I think that honestly is probably where this rumor started. I think there's a chance he maybe can play some more. But as we know, sometimes rumors just get distorted. So I think that got distorted into, there being a chance that Doty could start. So we'll see. Obviously, they're really high on him. They're high on the future of him and his future in this program and his future at quarterback. I think the other thing, reading between the lines here, y'all, it sounds to me like the whole idea of receiver and getting a lot of reps there, and that potentially, being something they do a lot of down the stretch. I don't necessarily see that being part of the plan. Could that change? I guess we'll see. But I think moving forward, it's more about, Doty working at quarterback in practice, and then seeing, if there's some different opportunities to get him into the game and some things he can do for you, just to provide an extra element on that side of the ball. So we'll see. Let's see. I'm going to hit a couple of your questions along the way, and then let me make sure I got my invite link sent to Colin Taylor. He's going to join us probably in about 5 or 10 minutes. So get that taken care of. Let's see. I saw some questions. Yeah, I mean, there's questions obviously about Ryan Helinski. I mean, he's still in the mix, y'all. I mean, there's always a competition, at that position, and you have to sort of. I think because Helinski played last year, a lot of people sort of assume, maybe even going back to this offseason, assumed he was going to be the starter. So I get it. I get why there's questions about Helinski, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because Hill was the starter, it doesn't mean Helinski did anything wrong. It just means Hill beat him out. And right now, I do think in practice there's been a push maybe from Doty. So we'll see. Let's just see how it plays out. And we'll sort of go from there, y'all. But again, I firmly think Colin Hill will be the starter on Saturday. And even if you were going to make a move, I don't know if necessarily against a top 10 opponent. I don't know if that's the perfect time to make a move like that when you really haven't had a chance to let Doty get out there and throw and actually, play a little bit. There's a reason why Colin Hill, as I said during the bye week, there's a reason why Colin Hill won the starting job in the first place. And a big part of that is that not just the knowledge of the offense, that sort of that line of reasoning, while true, I think that the line of reasoning at let me try to think of the best way to say this. The line of reasoning that Colin Hill knows the offense better than anyone else is true, but it's also oversimplified. That's not the only reason why Colin Hill is the starting quarterback. It is more about the idea of he knows the offense and then he's able to execute the offense at a higher level, potentially because of that. But he's still making the throws. He's still the guy who, in practice leading into the season, and obviously in practice since the season started, has been executing at the highest level. So I think sometimes that sort of gets thrown around as being the only reason he's the quarterback, because it's been given as a reason when that's really not the case. That's not the only reason Colin Hill is the quarterback. Let's see. I'm going to hit a couple more of y'all's questions. RJ asked, I think moving to carry on to wide receiver was a good move, or should he have stayed at quarterback? I think that was the right move. I really do. Gunnar Stockton rumor. I still haven't had anybody of substance tell me that Stockton is going to reclassify. So I won't say, that I can completely 100% put that to bed, but I haven't had anybody, even when all that started, say that was the case. So, yeah. But I think you look, obviously, the quarterback position naturally, when you're at 2-3, that position is going to be discussed. That is the way the game is, because that person is front and center, and it's very easy to blame the quarterback for all of your problems. That's the way football has been probably since it began. Quarterback will always get too much of the blame, and probably at times get too much of the praise when you win. But it is what it is. I'm sure Colin Hill, I would think, knew that's what the case was going to be when he came to South Carolina. But when you sit at 2-3, there are going to be quarterback questions. It just happens. But that doesn't mean that it's necessarily right to make a move. Could Colin Hill have played better against LSU? If Colin Hill was on the show right now, I think he would tell you that. Does he have to get the ball out quicker? Yes. So I think it's a situation there where you're always evaluating every position on the team, but you still have to go with who you think gives you the best chance to win the game. So we'll see. I do believe there's a question or comment there from Kyle about Jalen Brooks. I think you will continue to see him be more involved in the offense moving forward. You had like a half of a week to get him ready, for LSU. Then you have the entire bye week to get him ready. Now this entire week as well, leading into Texas A&M. So, yes, I think Jalen Brooks will continue to get more and more comfortable within the offense. He was already pretty comfortable anyway, but I think you have a situation where now he will be much more comfortable out there, actually having a couple of weeks to get settled in. And he's one of the keys, not to put it too much on a transfer, but to me, he's one of the keys to the stretch of the season, because you look, Muschamp's been asked several times since the bye week began, what are the areas of improvement that you're going to need, moving forward? And the first thing that's out of his mouth is run defense. And I think we've all seen that is the area on the team that has to get fixed more than any other, in my opinion. But then after that, he sort of gets to, okay, they have to find a way to be more explosive on offense. And I think that goes to Jalen Brooks. The offense, really, to me, the offense has outplayed expectations. offense has been better than I thought they would be. So, we'll see if they can sort of find that with Jalen Brooks. Is it Jakari Caldwell who comes on? Can Rico Powers play more of a role? Can Xavier Legette sort of build confidence and get to that point? Can DeCarrion Joyner maybe? It's going to be a fluid situation there. But finding more explosiveness within the offense is key number 2. Key 3, I would say, again, based on what Muschamp has said a couple times, is the explosive plays on defense. Too many of those allowed. That goes hand in hand with stopping the running game because they're always sort of tied together. And then finally, cleaning up special teams. I think the kickoff returns there. They're going to make a change with Parker White, or excuse me, kickoff coverage, I should say. The kickoff returns that have been allowed, by South Carolina, both have been on directional kicks that didn't get to where they were supposed to be. So they'll let Parker White handle kickoff duties again and sort of go from there. But those are the 4 things you look, and interestingly, they tie in, directly to this game this week. Those areas we're talking about are going to be tested right off the bat, because you look at Texas A&M, look at this Texas A&M offense, and I feel like Texas A&M offensively, when South Carolina has played them in recent years, go back to last year, that was really the only game these teams have played, under Will Muschamp that wasn't really a close game. A&M won 30-6. But you look 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, all those games, I think 5 years ago as well, all of those games have been pretty tight. But I also feel like A&M, to me, it felt like at the time, didn't quite have everything figured out on offense for those games. And now it just sort of, you look at what they have going right now. Kellen Mond is an upperclassman. And it's really a situation where he seems more comfortable. He seems sort of completely in command of this offense. He's spreading the ball around to several really good wide receivers. And he's able to get Isaiah Spiller involved, one of the best backs in the country. They have a really good tight end. So you sort of wonder, matchup-wise, what this looks like for South Carolina, particularly if they cannot clean up a lot of the issues that we talked about for the entire bye week and really have talked about for most of the year. But you look at the run game issues on defense, you're going to be tested right off the bat, straight out of the bye week this week against Texas A&M. So whether or not they can do that or not, we'll see. All right, I see Colin Taylor in the little box there. Colin, if you're ready, give me a thumbs up, man. I'll bring you in. Colin is ready. He is joining us now via his living room. Colin, what's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Just getting back into the swing of things after a lovely weekend off from South Carolina football.
Yeah, of course, Colin Taylor, our beat writer there on Gamecock Central for football, baseball, basketball, some other sports mixed in there as well. Dude, I was telling them, I feel like the bye week came at a perfect time for almost like a little palate cleanser, just to sort of get South Carolina football out of the way for one weekend. Probably for the fan base, probably for us as well, though. Just sort of not having to, for the poor folks in our chat who had to watch the way the LSU game went. I'm sure it was a lot easier watching on Saturday for folks out there.
Yeah, I mean, I got to use my brand new meat smoker, so we did a little meat smoking on Saturday and sat down and it's weird to watch stakes-free football because you and I obviously watch it with a different lens than a lot of other people. So it's weird to watch football without having to have the wheels turn in your head of
Yeah.
what this means, big picture, the things you're going to ask. So it was nice to kind of turn the brain off and watch some football for a little bit.
Yeah, and your first non-working Saturday as a married man during
Yeah.
football season. So
Yeah, there was a honey-do list over the course of the 3 days.
oh
So,
man.
yeah.
That's okay though. That's okay.
Yeah.
You got to smoke some meat, as you said, man. So now everything turns back on. Second half of the year. We talked a lot of big picture last week, but before we sort of talk A&M, I imagine it's gonna what you saw lines up with about everybody, what they saw as well, man. To me, it's been pretty clear. Stopping the run has and I don't know what the answers are. I don't know what South Carolina can clean up. I don't know what is just a matter of not being big enough or just not matching up well. Time will tell. But to me, Muschamp has sort of listed off these 3 or 4 things every time he's been asked during the bye week, and they're pretty simple to point out, but much more difficult to actually clean up on the field, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think it like you said, it starts with stopping the run, and I don't know how much better you can get with 3 practices or 4 practices or whatever you get. Obviously, you can change some things schematically, but at some point you have to dance with the date that brought you. I think is the term there. I mean, at the end of the day, you're playing with the guys you're playing with. There's only so much you can do, and I think there has to come a point where they're saying, "Listen, we've done all we can do." At some point, Zach Pickens has to go out and be that 5-star talent. Jabari Ellis has to go out and be the 3rd-year player he is. Keir Thomas has to go out and be the fifth-year senior he is. He has to go out and do a bunch. You have to rely on the guys that have gotten you to that point, and I don't know if they're going to drastically improve going into Texas A&M, and Texas A&M again is a really, really good rushing offense, and but I think that you need to see at least some market improvement in terms of being able to affect the line of scrimmage and stop the run to a degree, and stop giving up so many explosive plays, because that's really been a backbreaker for him.
Yeah, and I mean, as completely oversimplified as it sounds, to me, I've said they literally just have to play better up front. Like there is no magic bullet. There's no, I know everybody says, well, play Birch more, play the younger guys more. Those guys are already rotating in right now, so there's nobody sitting over there on the bench just waiting to come in and save the day. The guys that are out there are going to have to do it better. And I think the thing about run defense, man, is that it is a constant deal of everybody has to pull in the same direction, because if you have, let's say, on any given play, 4 defensive linemen and your 2 linebackers, and if one of those guys gets knocked out of their gap, it can blow the whole thing up for the entire unit, and then it can lead to a decent play for your opponent. So it's kind of like it has to be cleaned up to the extent of everybody has to do their job while trusting the guy beside them is going to do his job. And one thing Muschamp talked about, Colin, is not sort of trying to do too much. Don't bounce out of your gap thinking that you have to go make a play, and then because you got out of your little run fit area, the running back, bounces it back, and then it leads to a big play. So I do think some of the issues are that they are smaller in the middle than some of their opponents. But I do think, from what reading between the lines, some of this stuff is correctable, and it's more about, I think, a down-to-down focus on doing everything they need to do to stop the run.
Right, and it's human nature at some point. If I'm playing football, to say, oh well, the run's this way, I need to go that way, and try to make this big play for my team. Whereas in reality, no, they need you to they need you to set the edge on the backside of the play to make sure the right guy can't cut back. And that's where I think the struggles come, is when guys, and because they're so small up front, comparatively speaking, they have to rely on a lot of movement, a lot of stunting, a lot of different things to try and affect the run game. And at some point, like Muschamp said, it could work out in your favor, but at some point, during a game, you're going to get bounced out of a gap doing that. So could they probably move a little bit less to avoid some of those creases? Probably. And I think you might see that. But a lot of it's going to depend on, I think, matchups. And like you said, if they get to a point where, they just need these guys to play better and just stay in their gaps and do their thing. And we talk so much about gap control, and you see when when gap control happens, South Carolina tends to stop the run more often than it doesn't.
Yeah, and the thing is, man, we've seen. I mean, I'll even go back to 2 years ago. I remember going into the Texas A&M game for South Carolina, you know, at home, and A&M came in with a really good running back. Kellen Mond was still the quarterback, and Carolina had been awful at stopping the run to that point in the season. And then they actually played A&M's running game very, very well. So there are instances where you can see improvement from a team as a year progresses, and you do get, I would say, at least a mild boost from looking at things and looking in the mirror during the bye week. But we'll see how big of a boost that is against an offense that I think has started to sort of click. I feel like when Carolina's played A&M in the past, I didn't really feel like A&M's offense was all that great. They were talented, but not one of the best offenses South Carolina faced. So we'll see that. Dude, so what's your take on Carolina's offense? To me, we're at 2-3, which is not a surprise at all. But how South Carolina got there is flipped from what I expected. I thought the defense would play well. I thought they'd play, frankly, a good bit better than they have overall. And I didn't expect much from this offense. And the offense has actually exceeded my expectations to this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you had told me that South Carolina was averaging 30 points, I mean, close to 30 points, and had a lot of success in the red zone at the beginning of the year, I would have told you Marshawn Lloyd has lived up to the hype. And obviously he goes out, and I give credit to Mike Bobo for being able to scheme a run offense and a run attack, rushing attack that focuses around two pretty under recruited guys, two guys that South Carolina found under the radar that they landed in Kevin Harris and Deshaun Fenwick. And it's gone really well. And I think Mike Bobo has done a really, really good job with the receiver group. That's obviously Shi Smith, and I mean, they've just been so inconsistent at receiver. They're inconsistent at tight end at times, and the offensive line has struggled at times pass protecting. To have an offense that's efficient and putting up close to 30 points a game, I think is a testament to how good Mike Bobo has been this year. Colin Hill hasn't been great, but I don't think he's been bad either.
All right, we still got you there, Colin. We're having a little.
He obviously had a clunky, be the first one to tell you he didn't play well. He didn't play well.
Seems like every other time I have a guest, there's a little buffering issue with this app for some reason. Hold on, Colin. I'm going to remove you and then add you right back. See if we can get you. Everybody's hang tight. Can you still hear us, Colin? All right, y'all, just hang tight with me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna try one more time, y'all, to get him back on here. Y'all know how technology is, man. I don't know if y'all have Spectrum in Columbia, but my internet was weird this weekend. We'll try one more time. But yeah, I like Colin's saying, it's a matter of just fixing some issues. All right, so while we're working on that, Does anybody, if y'all want to put your questions in the chat for the sort of questions for the final half of the year, and we'll sort of go from there. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. We're going to try this one more time.
Right.
We're losing Colin there at the end. I think we got him now.
There it is.
All right, so, dude, give us I don't know how much you've had a chance to sort of dive into A&M yet, but what are your initial thoughts, Colin, on this matchup? I think it's interesting, man. On paper, there's a lot to like really not like about how it looks for South Carolina, but then also I think, as we said, man, for the most part, South Carolina has competed with A&M. I feel like every year they go into this game as an underdog, but have for the most part been able to compete with A&M. So on paper, what are you seeing this year?
Yeah, I mean, they're run heavy on the ball. They're good at it, which is not Carolina, given their run defensive struggles. Kellen Mond is good, not great. I haven't gotten to really delve into well defensively, but I know offense is very, ground and pound, not ground and pound, but they like to run the ball. They like to get guys into space and have them go make plays. And that's going to be a big struggle for South Carolina, especially defensively, given how much, how much they've struggled recently to prevent big plays. And I think they've shown a propensity to give those up. A&M has the guys that could burn you for that.
Yeah, and I think, like I said earlier, man, they really have some weapons on offense. You got a veteran in mind. We talked about Isaiah Spiller earlier, but their tight end, you look at the PFF ratings, I think their tight ends maybe the highest graded guy on offense. So they got some dudes. It's really a game where the more I look, I'm like, man, Carolina this may be a thing where they're going to have to score some points and sort of win a more high scoring game, which we'll see. All right, man. So I know, obviously, we for the most part have been focused on football on the show, but Garnet and Black World Series going on this past week. I know the talent level at South Carolina on this team for baseball. I don't want to say, obviously, I don't want to go too far with this thing, but with the draft just being 5 rounds, and with what South Carolina had brought in previously, and some of those guys coming back. Just overall, man, how does the talent level on this group compare to what you've seen, under Kingston the year or two prior to that?
Yeah, it's probably the deepest talent pool that he's had to work with since he's been here. It's just about getting him experienced. That team group that went to a super was really, really experienced, which is why you saw them do what they did in the postseason. But you had Friday night guys in Jordan and Thomas Farr, some really, really good pitchers coming in behind him, and Mag Cotto and Will Sanders and Julian Bosnick, who's been here for years. I know I'm forgetting guys, Danny Lowell, Tringali. You have a lot of pitchers that can touch, 94, 95 miles an hour, which has not been the case here over the last couple of years. So the volume of guys they've had, and then position players, Malone, Star, Jeff Heinrichs look good, Brady Allen's look good, Andrew Eister's been on fire this preseason. I mean, in terms of just depth, this is probably the deepest, most talented roster he's had. And now it's just about getting the guys that maybe haven't had the experience and seeing if that can gel together.
And so to me, man, I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, this South Carolina team obviously going to be very, very talented. Is every team in the SEC though going to also benefit from? I mean, I almost look like to me, it seems like it might just be a bloodbath each week because all these teams, due to the way the draft was handled this year, maybe have had a little influx of talent compared to what they would have otherwise. You think it's more that the cream could sort of rise to the top within the conference as far as like the more elite teams were able to benefit from that? Or do you think it's going to be one of these things where just top to bottom, everybody's sort of loaded up this year, and it's like a really fun display of college ball where you have maybe some more talented guys than we're used to having across the board.
Yeah, bloodbath is probably going to be a nice way to describe what I see this year. This is going to be not only a golden era for college baseball, but I think a golden era, and Mark Kingston said, I mean, it's a golden era for the SEC. It's already college baseball, and I think everyone's gotten better. Every team got better. Now, whether every team got good or not is a different story. I think South Carolina, if you're ranking the teams that did the most from this draft, I think South Carolina is near the top. Vanderbilt was already good. Florida's already good. LSU's already good. South Carolina, those teams are great, and South Carolina was good last year. But I think what this draft does is it allows you to be able to compete on a weekend basis with those really good teams in the SEC. It's not, you have the depth to be able to trot out the arms and have the bats to go up against an Ole Miss, a Mississippi State, an LSU, night in and night out during a weekend series. It wasn't the case the last couple years where you just didn't have the depth that you needed once you got to late Saturday and then Sunday to on a night out basis. And I think this year, am I saying they're going to go out there and win, 25 conference games? I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is they're going to have the ability that Saturday and Sunday, when the other teams throw top 10 picks, top 10 rounders, you're going to be able to have the same out there with them, which definitely helps South Carolina.
Yeah, I got you. All right, man. Good stuff, Colin. I know you got a lot going on, man. You're doing the back-to-back podcast fest here. So I already knocked one out at 1. I did one at 12:30. Then you had one at 1. Now we're doing this one together, man. So I know you're busy. I'll let you get back to it. But appreciate the time, man. I'll see you soon, okay?
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it.
Yep, that's Colin Taylor, who joins us there real quick, talking a little. Had some connection problems there, which I hate, but that's all right. Wanted to give a little just different perspective on both this week and get somebody in to talk about the baseball team, because I do think baseball team is going to be really fun to watch this year. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Obviously, football. Take it back to Texas A&M. I will say, so I didn't watch a ton of games this weekend. I did watch some of them. I actually watched the noon games, watched Clemson, BC. I guess every Carolina fan probably watched a little bit of that. Watched some of the other SEC games. Tried to watch some Auburn, LSU, ended up turning it off. But I will say there's been a lot of talk I've seen on the message boards about how does South Carolina beat Auburn? Then LSU beat South Carolina handily. Then Auburn turn around and beat LSU the way they did. And I think, y'all, it's just another example, one, of how the transitive property does not apply to football. And that's because, to me, it's because, okay, if you have, let's take these 3 teams. You have South Carolina offense against the LSU defense. And you have the Auburn offense against the LSU defense, for example, and you're using that to compare. Yes, it gives you an idea of how good those units are compared to a similar opponent across from them. But it doesn't tell you what the South Carolina offense would do against the LSU defense, or vice versa, because those units aren't on the field at the same time. So it really, from a matchup standpoint, doesn't tell you what's going to happen, because so much of football is so based on matchups: who can stop the run versus who can run the football, who can stop the pass versus who can pass the football, and how all those little, this guy covering that guy, or this guy trying to rush against this guy specifically, how those little battles play out does not come into the conversation when you're looking at just the results of one game versus another. So I don't think the transitive property has ever really been very helpful when judging football teams. But also, to me, it kind of comes down to if South Carolina plays LSU 10 times, is LSU going to beat them that handily every time? No. The games come to what happens on that given day. If you have, again, I'll say it again, if you have a pick six and you have a kickoff return allowed for touchdown at LSU, you're not going to win that game. So if these two teams play again, does LSU win 6, 7 out of the 10? Maybe, probably, I guess. But LSU's not going to just run South Carolina out of the building every time they play. Much like if Auburn and South Carolina play again, does Bo Nix throw 3 interceptions every time? Probably not, but that's how it happened on that given day. So that's how it played out. So yes, on paper, it seems weird. It seems really weird that South Carolina and LSU and Auburn, the results would all be that weird. That would be that different. But I think when we think of it like that, we're more thinking about it on paper, and we almost sometimes forget, hey, like these are human beings. They're trying to play a game and execute. They're not going to, if they played 10 times, all 10 games would play out completely differently as far as from a microscopic standpoint. Macro, it might be similar results, but as far as how the actual game would go, would play out differently all 10 times to get either the same or a different result. So I think it is weird. I get why people were sort of upset about that, but Auburn was able to do what South Carolina was not able to do to TJ Finley, but it wasn't because South Carolina didn't want to do that. I think there's a sort of misconception there. All right, perfect example. I'm going to pull this up right now. John, Wes, we didn't rush the passer at all in the LSU game. Auburn rushed the passer from the beginning. He was a freshman in this first game and was never pressured by us. That was not the game plan for South Carolina. Didn't stand there and let Finley have no pressure on him. Now, could you argue South Carolina should sell out more with the blitz? Should they blitz more? Should they bring more guys? Yes, you can make that argument, but if you're blitzing, you're putting all of your DBs on an island, and you're now potentially allowing more big plays. And after the fact, if you say, okay, it's easy to say now, well, South Carolina never punted, so they should have blitzed every single down, and maybe it would have been different. Maybe it wouldn't have been. But I think for some reason we get caught up in this idea of like South Carolina didn't rush the passer. Well, they were trying to rush the passer, but you're not getting home. And the reason you're not able to rush the passer is because the LSU running game is able to cram it down your throat first and second down. So the real issue to me is not that South Carolina couldn't rush the passer, is that they could not stop the run to put their pass rushers in a position in order to be able to rush the passer. The thing about this game is that Auburn was able to stop the run on early downs, and it put Finley in a position to actually have to go make some throws into coverage, and then you see the freshman mistakes come out. South Carolina never was able to put him in a position for the freshman mistakes to come out. The problem being that they literally just weren't able to do it, not that they weren't trying to do it. And the issue there as well is that South Carolina had an extra hat in the box to stop the run. So it's not a matter of just, bring another guy into the box. That tends to be what we say when you're not stopping the run. The scary thing is that South Carolina already did have a guy in the box for a lot of that game, and was unable to stop the run still. So we will see if they can clean up these issues moving forward against, again, a Texas A&M team that I think it's pretty solid. If you look at the game this past week against Arkansas, the final score probably wasn't quite indicative of how well A&M played. I think Arkansas scored 14 points unanswered in the fourth quarter once the game was over, and cut that game to a little bit closer than what it actually was. So I think what was the final, 42-35, 34. I don't have it in front of me right now, but basically through 3 quarters, Arkansas had scored just 17 points, and they scored sort of 14 garbage time touchdowns in the fourth quarter, and were able to make it look a little bit closer than it was. But I believe is how it played out. So pretty good A&M team. I think Mind has really spread the ball around well from what I've seen from them statistically. But to me, it all comes down to Isaiah Spiller stopping the run and sort of being able to put Mind in these third and long passing situations. So anyway, all right, y'all. Y'all have any final questions? Obviously, as the week goes on, we'll have – so it's going to be a little bit different this week. Will Muschamp will talk on Tuesday as always. Players will talk on Wednesday this week. They will have Tuesday off for the bye week. Or, excuse me. They will have Tuesday off. It's already been a long day. They have Tuesday off to go vote if they have not already. That's an NCAA mandatory day off. So players will talk on Wednesday. So we'll still have Muschamp's press conference tomorrow. And then, as we always do, we'll talk about the Muschamp press conference right after that. And then Wednesday, players will talk. We'll be able to talk about that. And then we, of course, will have somebody, on from Texas A&M Rivals site to talk about the game from there. My ADD, I don't actually have ADD, but my just ability to talk and then read y'all's comments at the same time definitely needs improvement, because I will be talking and I will have a thought, and then I will see somebody say something, all the chat going on over here, and completely lose my train of thought, which is why it's way better when we have 2 people on this show and not just me. If y'all have any final questions, Michael, if you want to hear more quarterback talk, go back to the beginning of the show on youtube.com/GamecockCentral. But as I said earlier, still fully believe Colin Hill will be the starting quarterback on Saturday, and I will believe that until I hear any different. Let's see if we got any more questions, y'all. I don't see any. If I missed any from earlier, y'all send them back in, and I'll try to get them right before we cut off. But should be a good game this week. If you missed at the beginning, obviously not a whole lot of news today. Ole Miss, South Carolina, kickoff at 7:30. That game will be on SEC Network. Again, Muschamp talking tomorrow, players talking Wednesday. I'll be back on by myself tomorrow. Chris Clark will be back on Wednesday. And I'm working on some guests for y'all as well, some former players that can hop on and talk ball. But yeah, if you're just getting in, I see Trey's just getting in on Facebook. You can go back and watch from the beginning at any time. I don't know if Facebook lets you do that or not, but I know YouTube will. youtube.com/GamecockCentral. And also, if you prefer podcasts, the audio version of the show will also be on there on any of the podcast platforms like Apple, Google Play. There's like 1,000 of them now. Spotify, Spreaker, any of the other ones you can go back and watch. Trey says you can watch it on Facebook as well. So, okay, a couple questions here. Alex asking, is Zaquandre White going to be back into the running back rotation soon? I still think White is a guy who can help this team. I mean, he's a talented kid. He's got something a little bit different from a skill set standpoint, compared to the other guys. But obviously, protecting the football and not to like, I don't want to read into Muschamp's comments too much, but we saw the fumble. It's one fumble. We saw the fumble against Vandy in the garbage time, and then Muschamp reiterated, not talking about White, but just talking in general. He reiterated later on and said, "You have to hold on to the football to be, for the staff to be comfortable putting you out there to play a lot. You have to hold on to the football." So, were those? Was that statement pointed right at White? I don't know, but I do know when he got the garbage time against Vandy and the fumble that didn't seem to help. But he's played on special teams. He's been really good there. He obviously has some wiggle to his game. He obviously can make people miss. I still think at some point this year, you could see White get his chance, and hopefully he'll excel with it, because I like the kid a lot. He's been through a lot going through JUCO and getting back to FBS ball. So we'll see. There's a question, should he be moved to the slot? I doubt you make that move at this point. I still think he's a running back. And ultimately, I think he'll get his shot. Running backs always seem to get their shot. Now, you have two guys, luckily, in Harris and Fenwick, who are pretty big, thick guys that can run with power and sort of take it. They're sort of workhorse backs. They deliver the hits as opposed to taking the hits. So I guess that maybe helps them to stay a little more healthy. But generally, running backs, you have to have ultimately more than even two. You need three, sometimes four. So that would lead you to believe White may ultimately get his shot. Dame asked my thoughts on Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. I think as the week sort of went on, it seemed like Georgia was probably the most likely pick. And it's a guy at various times has had South Carolina as the leader behind the scenes, has had Georgia as the leader behind the scenes, and has had Tennessee as the leader behind the scenes. So I'm sure South Carolina will continue to continue to work that situation and see if they can't land him, get him off of that Georgia commitment. But I think just the chance to play for a name program like Georgia was always going to be something that was a factor with Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. So we will see. RJ wants to know if I think Brooks will have a better game this week. Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said earlier, I think he will have an opportunity to get more settled in. And he's now had, the half of the week for LSU, the full week during the bye week, and now a full week leading into Texas A&M. So you have an actual opportunity to get settled in there a little bit if you're Jalen Brooks. And I think he's going to be a big part of this final half of the year, because for one, we all know what we all heard he did coming in, that he instantly sort of grabbed the attention of his teammates, instantly was in a position to help this team. He obviously didn't have the waiver at first, and there's no reason for me to believe that he will not be in a position to help this team down the stretch. So he'll be fine. He'll play well. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his first start on Saturday, although we'll see about that. Question about the defensive end from Sumter, Justice Boone. Yeah, I'm gonna have a article up here at some point this afternoon on defensive linemen to keep an eye on down the stretch now that TID has committed to Georgia. And Justice Boone, I think, is still one to keep an eye on. For everything I've heard, still sort of going through the recruiting process. He is, of course, committed to Florida, but still listening to other schools. South Carolina has been on him since the beginning. They've really put effort into him and have recruited him hard. So I think Justice Boone remains a guy to watch for South Carolina down the stretch. So we'll see how that goes and just see what they can do there. But yeah, certainly Justice Boone still one to keep an eye on. All right, y'all, we're closing in on 3 o'clock. So I'm going to get back to typing up some stuff for the site. Be on the lookout for that. I'll have a Carolina Confidential up at some point, either late this afternoon or early this evening. And then we will be back for GC Live tomorrow afternoon, probably about 2 o'clock or so. And we'll talk about whatever Will Muschamp had to talk about during his weekly media relations, media availability thing on Tuesday. So, all right, y'all, I appreciate it. For everybody who joined in the chat, for everybody who listened after the fact, keep it right here, Gamecock Central YouTube, and all the other platforms at Gamecock Central. So appreciate it. Y'all have a great day, and I will talk to y'all soon.